The great Star Trek The Next Generation breakdown continues with a look at Seasons 6 and 7.
Welcome to DiceGeeks.com Tabletop RPG Show. Level up your RPG campaigns by filling yourself with stories and knowledge. Explore topics from archaeology to film history to writing to literature and much, much more. This is DiceGeeks.com Tabletop RPG Show.
Welcome to the show. My name is Matt, and I am your host. This is the podcast where we learn how to become better game masters and role players by filling ourselves with stories and knowledge. All right, guys. Again, a little something different today. This is part of a continuing conversation that I had to split into pieces because me and my guest talked for over 3 hours. And so I have cut this up into episodes. So this is part of my giant Star Trek The Next Generation rant. My guest is Ryan McHargue. He is a writer, a longtime role player and game master. He is also the host of Geezers of the Game, a tabletop RPG podcast. Imagine that. So again, we joined this conversation kind of in midstream, and Ryan and I were really kind of working on the stream of consciousness here as we fly back and forth between all kinds of things, Star Trek and science fiction. So I hope you enjoy this episode, because here it is. Okay, are we doing season 6 and 7?
I like Dwight. I like him.
Okay, first off, Ryan, are we going to do season 6 and 7? Do you want to do it real quick, or
man, you're right. We can't do it real quick. They are such a great, powerful seasons in so many ways.
I mean, I could cover them quickly. I could cover them quickly because, sadly for me, maybe this is where we're going to start disagreeing.
Oh, okay.
I think seasons 6 and 7 are the weakest.
Okay. Okay.
Even including season 1 and season 2.
Okay. I actually kind of agree with you. So, I do like Dwight, like I said, in Realm of Fear, because I'm an A-Team fan, and I think he does a really good job with the character.
Yeah. I
do think the character is dumb, but I like the character anyways. They even named our dog after him. But
Barkley?
That's not... Yeah, Barkley. Yep.
Nice.
Spelled the same way.
Nice.
Man of the People.
Well, yeah, the episode with Barkley doesn't work. Man of the People, we get isn't that another murder?
Just another negotiation, dumb thing. Yeah.
Isn't it like another mental rape episode or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we also have schisms. We have relics. Obviously, Jimmy Doohan comes in.
Relics.
I love Jimmy Doohan, but
yeah.
It was a pandering episode. Every time they bring somebody back, it's pandering.
Yeah, Relics with James Doohan here as Scotty comes back on the show from the original series. I love seeing him. The scene with him and Patrick Stewart on the holodeck old Enterprise bridge is great.
Yes.
The problem with the episode is, again, the episode makes no sense. And apparently, I was reading, it came in 12 minutes long, and they had to cut out some important scenes and stuff.
Well, that explains a lot.
But this is another example that I was trying to give of the story structure just completely falling
completely
apart.
Different
And
completely different
apart.
type of writing.
Yeah, completely different type of writing. And, we get a Dyson sphere, which should change the world, right? It should change the whole future. And Picard's not even interested in it. He's like, oh, wow, let's go. We'll get a science vessel to check it out. Let's go off in space.
Yeah. Aren't they explorers?
Yeah, this would have changed.
Science ship.
You could have stayed at that Dyson sphere for 1,000 years or until the sun blew up or whatever, because it was amazing. But they just totally throw that off.
I know.
The end is they give him a shuttle and just let him fly away.
Yeah, they just give him a shuttle. What's that a crap about?
So James Doohan, awesome.
What Jimmy Doohan?
Yeah, James Doohan, who knows, right? He was eaten by the doomsday machine or whatever. I don't know what happened.
That wasn't ever in these seasons.
I know. That's the first thing that came to my mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Ferengi picked him up, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, I will say there's one thing I do like about this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Is it ended? Okay.
Now we have to go a ways for me to like any of them.
Schism is so stupid.
Yeah.
True Q. Yeah, I like Q, but this.
Yeah.
I do like the little version of Kirk. Or not Kirk. Picard, but it's also really dumb in many ways.
Yeah. Fistful of Datas is interesting. It's kind of funny. This is where there's a malfunction on the holodeck, and Data keeps replicating. So Brent Spiner plays like 30 characters in this episode.
Easily. Yeah.
And it is an interesting episode on a number of fronts. It was the first professional sale of a writer named Robert Hewitt Wolf, who I've interviewed on the podcast. It was his first professional sale after he was out of college. And he, of course, went on to create Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, which I loved until he was fired.
Of course you do.
Except he was fired. He was also a writer and producer on Deep Space Nine. After
I remember.
So Fistful of Datas is fun. It's a holodeck episode.
It's just this fun episode. There's not any real depth to it.
Yeah. Any others here in season 6 that stand out? Everybody talks about Chain of Command Part 1 and 2. I don't like
care
them.
about those.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's something. No, not really.
Yeah, Tapestry.
Except for Tapestry. That's it.
Tapestry, kind of. Yeah.
I like Tapestry because it's used a lot. What I really don't like is...
So what happens in Tapestry is there is alternate timelines of Q shows Picard what other choices in his life would have led off into an alternate timeline. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. I don't necessarily think that it was all done great, but I do like a lot of it.
Yeah.
I like the real history. The changed history bugs me.
Yeah. So
Birthright was just
Yeah, because we end up with Picard being like a lieutenant astrophysicist instead of Captain Picard.
It was just yeah. And then he cries and gets to come back as his normal self. We know Birthright was just to launch Deep Space Nine.
I don't understand Birthright. Yeah.
I understand it. I just don't care.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I don't know it even very well, even though I love Worf, but it's just a crossover.
I do too. I just think that was really dumb.
Yeah. And then seriously, I don't like any other episodes in this season.
I was trying to see here. I don't think I really hate Second Chances.
Oh, Second Chances. Yeah, this is where we find another Riker.
There's really nothing else.
And then the one before it, Rightful Heir, deals with Worf and possibly being like going to become emperor one day and Alexander, but it just didn't work.
Well, it just it
didn't work.
That's when they kind of gave up writing is what I really think in season 6.
Yeah.
They were done. They just had seasons they had to go through.
And that's kind of what frustrates me because like I said, like I'm trying to be cool with everybody. Like I'm not just trashing people doing stuff.
It's just hard to write something when it's it's going to end.
Yeah, but what frustrates me is actually when I look up some of these episodes and I look up the history behind them, the part that frustrates me is that I will see quotes now from writers and the producers who are like, we just didn't have any ideas. We just didn't know what to do. They just gave us an episode.
End the show.
And I'm just blown away by that because I mean, you're on a starship, you have these awesome characters, an amazing cast, you can do anything, and they were out of ideas, and that's really frustrating. And I'm not saying I could have wrote better episodes or anything like that, and then like I said, some of these episodes are just better than other TV shows, just plainly.
But even these crappy ones are better than most everything else that was on the air at the time.
Yeah. And so, but I do get frustrated when I read quotes like that. And I have seen quotes like that from some of the main writers who were just like, we don't even know these characters. It's been 7 years and 6 years and we don't even know these characters. And my thought is just like, well, you're the writer. Make us.
How do you not know the characters?
It's like, let us know the characters. But I think it was just part of this whole thing. Like everybody's from Earth. Everybody has the same background, like the Enterprise is not doing anything. So
stuff is coming to the Enterprise instead of the Enterprise going to stuff.
Right.
Even in the season 1 and season 2, right? Like we lose even the whole idea that there's a Federation almost outside of the Enterprise in season 6 and 7, right? Like
there isn't much talk about. I mean,
no, because even in season 1 and season 2, they're always like, "Oh, we got a message from so and so. We need to deliver a plague there, or
right." There's always
there.
some
deliver deliver a medicine
antidote
to this one plague world,
right.
or we've got to deliver this to this, or we're on this exploratory thing and we're studying these
drop
planets.
off this ambassador, which is a kind of an interesting use for a giant ship, but whatever.
Yeah, but like these episodes, they don't do any of that. They're just sitting in space and something happens to them.
Well, okay, so even worse than that. What should have been in season 7, I mean, you start off, I hate the Descendants one. I understand it.
So we'll go to Descent part 1 and part 2.
Or not, did I say Descendants? Yeah, Descent part 1 and 2.
We get lore back, and it's bored.
And we see what happens with the whole individualism.
Yeah.
And how that plays out. It is interesting to see the use of it, but the execution of the 2 episodes were so lackluster.
Yeah.
It felt like a completely different type of show.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. And this is where I think I saw that beginnings a little bit earlier, but Time's Arrow to me was where I really saw it. And then Descent. We're almost in a different show. And and we are into this phase where everything is about complicated politics. Everything is about some kind of moral or ethical dilemma that is a little strained.
We did miss one thing in season 6.
Oh, what's that?
There are 4 lights.
There are 4 lights. Yes.
Anyway.
Yes, that was the Train of Command episode that I was referring to. That everybody says
pretty much
great,
the only thing there.
But I don't care for that.
That torture thing, which was really dumb.
Well, it was what I found interesting. We're going back to season 6. But
sorry, it's my fault.
My problem with it is I loved, they have David Warner in it, Warner is awesome. He just passed away a few months ago, I think, as we're recording this. He, of course, was in Tron. He played the evil guy in Tron. He was the villain in Tron. He was in...
That's probably the most famous
Star Trek 6. He was in Star Trek 6 and Star Trek 5.
Undiscovered Country, yes.
Yeah, he was in Star Trek 5 and 6. He played
and what did he play in 5?
St. John Talbot, the Earth ambassador on that desert world planet.
On
Nimbus
Paradiso?
3.
Is that what it is?
Paradiso, yes. I said Nimbus 3. I think that's something else. But was it
Nimbus 3?
Nimbus 3? What is Nimbus 3?
Now I can't remember. Is Paradiso the city and Nimbus 3 is the planet?
Something like that.
I don't care. It's not actually important. I actually dislike that whole movie.
Yeah.
Personally.
It's a little strange.
It's a little off there.
Yeah.
And they sing row, row, row your boat, which is really dumb.
Yeah. Okay, let's do the movie. We'll do the movies later because we already are at 10 o'clock.
Okay, Liaison is...
Well, hold on. Let me... I was going to finish one thing.
That's right. 6. Sorry.
About Star Trek, about season 6 in Chain of Command with the torture episode. That is basically just a rehash from the 1984, the Orwell novel, the movie adaptation for the Orwell novel. It's basically just a rehash of that. And
it's a rehash of many things.
And so I didn't care for that. I
hated it when it first played.
Yeah.
I
didn't
found
hold my
things
attention.
I like about it, but for the most part, I hate it.
Yeah. It's weird too, because it's so weird because the what we're saying, that the tenor of the show changed so much because the first 3 seasons, I couldn't look away.
Yeah.
I just could not look away. Season 4, weird. Season 5, I was like, hey, these are great. These are some good episodes. We're back. And then it was like, we're gone again. And then once we get here to season 7, I mean, to me, it really falls apart.
It's a completely different show.
Totally different
show. You
said
before they were going places. Yeah. Now we're taking characters out of their normal role and putting them in different roles.
Yeah. And things are happening to the characters, and we're really focusing only on one character at a time. Some of the main characters won't even be in several episodes in a row.
But this happened with the original series too. because we started getting into the later episodes, Spock's brain and things like that. It started getting into that monster movie mentality.
Yeah. Well, that was because they slashed the budget as well.
I know why it happened, but it's the same kind of feel. And we get the terror thing in this too.
This is where, but Star Trek Next Generation was gaining power right now, right? We've had the spinoff Deep Space Nine during season 6.
Star Trek, the whole Paramount had so much power going on. How many movies came after this?
Yeah, well, I mean, the show obviously ends here in season 7, and 6 months later, we got a feature film movie with our cast.
We're not going to talk about that right now because that movie is irritating.
And we also got another spinoff show the next year. We got just Voyager and
Deep Space Nine is out for a year already, I think, at this point.
Yep, and season 7 is already out for a year. And but yeah, it's just a different show. And like season 6 and 7, it was so strange. These episodes are so much different. And I think people characterize these shows, like these episodes, as, kind of what's typical Star Trek. And I'm just like, no, this is not typical.
That's because that's when, by that time, it was popular.
It was super popular. Yes, you're right.
Right. So these are the ones that probably got a lot of viewership.
Yes.
As opposed to the first, 5 seasons, maybe the 5th season did too, but 1 and 2, which we've talked about, has its merits and some very strong merits.
Yeah, they do.
And also some very low merits.
It has some low points, but I said my biggest criticism, especially of season 1, was the fact that they were just remaking a lot of the episodes from the original series, which I didn't care for. But I'll take some of the mistakes they made in season 1 and season 2. I'll take some of those mistakes
over season 7.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Because at least you were failing, but you were trying to say, what's the future like, and what's the Federation like?
Something as opposed to just everything being about some character.
Yeah.
I mean, not to skip around, but.
No, we can. We're coming to the end anyway.
Phantasms or whatever, however you want to pronounce it, was just a horror film.
There are so many.
Same thing with Dark Page.
Yeah, like everybody.
And then attached.
Everybody has like a secret. Everybody has like a dark secret in their past that we've never heard about that makes them a traitor or a murderer or a vile person in some way.
Yes, exactly.
And it's so weird. And then Attached, really, you mentioned Attached. That's basically just a remake of that standard, the old movie with where the convicts are chained together and one, in the deep south,
where they have to escape. Yeah. Except for they tried to make it they tried to deepen the relationship between Picard and Crusher, but things I like and things I don't like about it.
Yeah.
Mostly, but it's still, yet again, it is not Star Trek.
No, it is not a Star Trek episode.
None of these are. Probably the closest is Force of Nature.
Yes. And I still don't like it. But
no, I actually hate that episode. But it's the closest to an actual Star Trek episode of that season.
Yeah. And then
let's not even talk about Inheritance.
Some of these episodes, I mean, the only one that I wouldn't even mind just watching again, I mean, I could watch the season finale again, but I could watch Lower Decks again.
Yeah, I could watch that.
But I don't I don't really watch season 7 much. And we
don't either. That's not entirely true. I watched Homeward not that long ago,
and that's where we find out Worf has a foster brother.
Yeah, and okay, that episode had so much promise in so many ways because it actually is a Star Trek feel a little bit. Yeah. We have a great, with Paul Sorvino or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He was from Law and Order and he's been in other things. He was always very good. And he did an excellent job with the role. It just was,
yeah. Yeah.
But Lower Decks is probably the highlight of the season.
And still, though, I mean, we almost get a little of the Star Trek feel back.
Yes, we do. With Thine Own Self, there's the whole, they're actually doing something on another planet while he is.
Yeah, but the whole Data arc wasn't any good.
There was things I liked, but it was so taboo. I mean, so tropey.
Yeah.
The whole episode. There were things I liked, but yeah.
Yeah, because it was almost like they were trying to do Ensigns of Command again.
Yes.
But they forgot that Ensign Commands was awesome. And you probably should just do something else.
That is exactly what they did. It is exactly that plot, only crappy.
Yeah.
And then there's my most hated episode, Masks.
Mask is such a strange episode.
It is so hard to watch because it is so stupid.
Yeah.
And that voice that he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Brent Spiner just fine. And like I said, he is probably the best actor on this show. As far as his acting. I'm not saying others aren't great actors or better than him, maybe in something else, but for the show, he is the best used actor.
Yeah.
But that episode is so painful. The whole ancient society transforming Enterprise, and it's just
because it's like the inner light come to the ship.
Yes,
right, and so
it is kind of the reverse of that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And like I said, I'm not trying to bash anybody, but
no,
I would take. I mentioned before there is. Shades of Grey, the season 2 finale, people say is one of the worst episodes. I will watch.
Oh, it's way better.
I will watch Shades of Grey. I will watch it like 10 times before I watch, some of these episodes here in season 7. And it's so strange because the cast is so good. The special effects are so good. The world you've created is so good. And you're the show is winning awards by this point. Money is being poured in. It is fever pitch popularity.
You would think they could have gotten some. I mean, everything is great except for the writers just didn't have anything to write about anymore for whatever reason.
Yeah, and like I said, I always tried to be polite and say, "Oh no, that couldn't have been the case."
I'm not saying it's the writer's fault.
No,
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it wasn't written very good.
Well, but what I was going to say is that, like I mentioned before, like I thought I was like, did the writers run out of ideas? And now I'm seeing quotes and the writers say they ran out of ideas.
Which you can see.
And it's just like, it was obvious.
Okay, so I will say one episode left that I do like. Although it is very much an odd episode, and it's kind of an odd man out of all the episodes, is Genesis. It's an odd episode.
It is.
I don't hate it. I actually like it, but it is not Star Trek in many of the ways that they've ever done anywhere else.
Yeah, so this is the crew where they start de-evolving into other creatures.
Which doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense because... they're all from Earth, so you'd think they'd all be Cro-Magnon men like Riker, but no.
Picard becomes a lemur. Worf becomes
Barclay becomes a spider.
Yeah,
and Troy becomes a fish.
Yeah, and Worf becomes a demon from
some kind of a hellhound, I guess.
Yeah, and I hear though
stupid.
That this was plagued with a lot of problems that
really? Probably with the way that the special effects are done.
It was they
did the aliens way of doing not showing Worf.
Yeah.
For the most part, making him the monster, that they're running from.
Yeah, and it's the only episode directed by Gates McFadden, who plays Dr. Crusher.
I'm not faulting the directing.
Well, I was going to say, though, I had heard or I'd read that I mean, some of the scenes are fine, so her directing there, but apparently it was like too long. Some of the effects, they didn't like the shots. They had to reshoot some things, and so it caused like a kind of a little flap there. And
I see.
It wasn't she was not invited back to direct like LeVar Burton or Patrick Stewart or Jonathan Frakes was.
This gave us a Jeddah tub.
What was it?
Because there was a Jeddah tub. This is very 90s decor, which we always know, but there's a Jeddah tub in space, which doesn't make a lot of sense because they are taking sonic showers, as we find out in the original series. So why is there a bathtub?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what was going on, but we're over time a lot.
Yeah.
We should just talk about All Good Things. So the season finale.
Okay, let's go to the end. Yes.
Season finale. I will say I watched it last year. I liked it better this time than when I watched it originally. I was kind of angry, but of course, like, it had been my childhood show, and now by this point, I was a young adult, and I wanted to make movies and I wanted to write TV shows, and so I liked it better this time, but I just we can skip the Troy Worf romance scene at the beginning.
Oh yeah, that's
I don't. Whatever. That's not there. I don't remember that part. I did like it better. Like I said, I liked it better. So we get Q back, right? So that kind of makes sense because Q was in the first episode, and now we get Q in the last episode.
Right. It's a completed of a
bookend.
circle.
Yeah, bookend.
And actually, since Voyager hasn't come out yet, before All Good Things, we have Preemptive Strike. That's when we find out about the Marquis, which is used obviously heavily in the pilot of
Voyager.
So they were really just trying to transition at this point.
Yeah.
And then obviously All Good Things is we've aged. Now we're done.
Yeah. And it's kind of strange. So it's a time episode. There's a lot of different, shifting between future and past, and
it wasn't complicated or anything, but it was convoluted. Some of it's good. Some of it's good. Yep. Some of it is odd. I always thought like some of their choices were odd. Like, like Geordi's a novelist. Data's chancellor of is it Cambridge, I think? He's the head honcho there.
Yeah.
And that he gave himself the gray thing in his head.
Yeah, he has like a gray swatch in his hair. Looks distinguished or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And then but like it was interesting, and they do kind of wrap up things because we find out they've still been on trial. That was the whole idea, that Q has humanity on trial and he's following the Enterprise around. And that was interesting. So like I said, I thought it was I liked it better than I had initially. It
at least had an idea that wrapped up the whole series.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't enjoy the wrap up.
Yeah.
But they had a wrap.
Yeah. So your thoughts, you didn't care for it?
Okay. There are scenes that I like.
Yeah.
There's some character development that is questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Troy and Worf. Yeah. The whole relationship between Picard and Crusher, that they've been married.
Yeah.
I didn't dislike it, but it also felt really weird the way that the relationship was. And then the whole thing with Riker and Worf was so stupid. I just didn't understand it.
Elucidate.
Okay, so they have to get Worf to come on board to help them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Riker and Worf have a grudge because of the whole Troy thing.
Yeah.
It could have been interesting, but it was thrown in there as a partial subplot that was really half-assedly given any attention.
Mm-hmm.
That was my main problem with the whole episode.
Yeah.
There was a whole lot thrown at us.
Yeah.
Without a whole lot of explanation. Had they just done 2 of the things, then it would have probably been better.
Yeah.
There's just too much.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was talking about before and it's really started with Time's Arrow, is we're really front loaded and then we just have to wrap it up in 30 seconds. At the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is actually, this episode really does have maybe a 2-minute wrap up in the last episode.
Yeah.
Which the wrap up itself had way more power than the rest of the episodes.
Yeah.
Those 2 episodes, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, they also had said, I read things about them saying we were going to wrap up loose ends. They
didn't wrap up any loose ends.
Well, they wrapped up throughout the season, right? They wrapped up lore. Yeah. They got lore and took him apart, right. And they took care of Wesley and they got rid of Wesley.
Yep.
And I always thought it was why the worst thing you can do is wrap up loose ends, especially with Star Trek fans, because we live in the loose ends. We create stories and novels and books and fan shows and everything about those loose ends. And some of those loose ends could actually be used to make better, to make feature films, which they didn't do.
Which could have made actually whole new shows.
Exactly.
But
we left those behind. And I don't know why. And so this was to try to give us a big wrap up. But of course, at the end, what happens?
Well, the one thing that I remember at the time, that there was this whole buzz of whether or not they were going to have a Q spinoff.
Oh, wow. I'm not remembering that one.
Oh, that's what I remember reading, but that never came to play, and they didn't really leave it open for that.
Yeah, well, I thought there was a lot of missed opportunities here at the end because so we get this big Q episode, and then where are they? They're all still on the Enterprise. Right?
For 7 years.
Yeah, for 7 years, and now we're just going to go off. Now, of course, there's a feature film 6 months later.
Which is my least favorite.
Well, we should, we'll save that for another time since we're almost 2.5 hours. But
there's no way we can touch the film.
No,
the films in itself is a 2 hour.
Because we'd have to talk about the original. Well, we're probably going to have to talk about the original series now and everything as well.
Well, at least the original series is only
79 episodes. 3 seasons.
So
well, what I was going to say here is all good things, right? Why I was always wondered why it wasn't treated kind of like the series finale of MASH or something.
That would have been so much better.
Where everybody's leaving.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Everybody is leaving. Yeah. And then Q could be messing with things. Sure. Hey, bring Q in it. That would be fine. But everybody's leaving, right? Riker's got a ship, whatever. Wesley's here. Geordi's going to do this. He's going to build some crazy thing.
I'm even fine with Wesley doing the Traveler thing.
Well, I'm fine
with that.
I'm fine with that too, but I'm just saying, I was just throwing out ideas. I kind of just mentioned Wesley, but you could have everybody leaving. I would have been crying my eyes out.
Yep.
On that, right? Watching everybody
you bring up MASH.
Yeah.
The end episode of that is the most watched television, I think, to this point still, isn't it?
I think so. Or, I don't know about this
maybe
point.
not, but it was for a long time.
Yeah, it was millions and millions.
Because it was so powerfully done.
Yes. And so,
and this could have been that.
This could have been that. And you could have had Crusher go off, and you could have had Picard promoted to Admiral, or whatever you wanted to do.
Matter of fact, they could have created that tension again, where Beverly and him were so close to being together, but their career decisions split them apart.
Exactly. Or maybe he stays, but she, because him staying captain of the Enterprise is still pretty cool, because that's a fun job. But everybody else is frozen in time, and
he could have done the thing that Kirk didn't do. Yeah.
There's not accept, that could have been a tease throughout the whole episode as well. Just being
great.
have him become an admiral, but then he decides to stay. But by the time he decides to stay, it's like Riker's a captain of a ship. Geordi has moved on. Dr. Crusher's moved on. Troy maybe's moved on, and maybe Data's the only one who moves to be his first officer or something like that.
Which would make the perfect sense.
Yeah. And then it's just like, I would have cried my eyes out, right?
I know.
I would have lost it, but like they didn't do it. And
they also didn't address Alexander.
And they didn't address Alexander, which I always found to be, and in Deep Space Nine, then they made Alexander a comic relief, and then they just never mention him again.
Yeah.
Which I found I was so frustrated with that.
I was frustrated with Deep Space Nine.
I am frustrated
for the most part.
I am frustrated with Deep Space Nine as well, and it's sad because a lot of the writers from TNG moved to Deep Space Nine, and they're always saying that Deep Space Nine. That's what they wrote. They're always saying that Deep Space Nine is like the best Star Trek that they made and everything, and I'm like,
what?
I know, and I don't understand what they're talking about.
I would rather watch Enterprise all over again.
Oh gosh. Yeah, Deep Space Nine is not my favorite.
No, it's a soap opera.
Like I said, I've interviewed Robert Hewitt Wolf on the show. He's an awesome guy. I know he's on the show.
But that doesn't mean that
no disrespect. No disrespect there.
No. He's a great writer.
He's
got some great episodes and other things he's written too. But
the first season and a half of Andromeda is amazing, and his fingerprints are all over that. And he is a phenomenal world. He's a phenomenal world builder, phenomenal writer.
Yes, he is.
And it's so it was just frustrating.
By the way, that interview was great.
Oh, well, thank you. He was awesome. That was awesome.
You did fanboy a bit though.
I did fanboy a little bit because the beginning of Andromeda is one of the shows where I got that little tingle from season 1 and season 2 of TNG again. It was a different feel altogether, but at the same time, it was that world building. Like you said, you felt a whole new world coming on. Yeah. And that there's pieces moving. Like these later shows, nothing's happening except the Enterprise. There's not even a plague somewhere, right? Don't even show Troy saying, "Oh, I'm gathering supplies for the plague on whatever," and then have her walk out of a scene. And that would have been fine. Like they didn't even do it. And
no, they didn't do anything to do with any of that. What was the Enterprise doing in any of those timelines that mattered?
Nothing.
They're Farpoint. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I can't complain about that, but
yeah. And so
other two Enterprises.
Yeah.
I guess there wasn't another Enterprise. It was just one.
It was just so strange to me that they don't. I guess this is the thing, right? One of the big things is, of course, television. I said this in the setup to the first one. Like we're talking about a different era of television, right?
Yes, we are.
So I totally get
7 years is a big change from.
Yeah.
What 1987 to 1994 is a huge difference in TV and what kind of shows are on the air.
America, the world, we've totally changed.
Friends is on the air. And that's one of the most popular shows. Well, you can see that kind of thinking with the way they wrote season 7.
Seinfeld is on, right?
Seinfeld is on. It's all the sitcoms really have come back.
Yeah, there was the big push
late
of sitcoms.
80s. The sitcoms were kind of dead.
Yeah. And then we had they came roaring back with more adult kind of themed sitcoms. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's so strange to me because, like I said earlier, at the end of season 3 and that cliffhanger coming into season 4, and I know why they didn't do it because TV was different back then. It's too much of a risk, but it totally seemed like Riker or somebody should have left the show. That the crew should have been moved a little bit more. There should have been
less stagnant.
Yeah.
Which is what happened in season 4. It just became very stagnant.
And so I get why they didn't do it because it was a totally different era. You can't mess with the formula. It's a hit. Money's coming in. Don't mess with the show. I get it.
Well, a lot of times when they kill off characters, it's because somebody wants to leave the show.
Sure.
They did that already without killing off. Well, they did. Obviously, Denise, they killed off. And
then Wesley leaves.
And then Wesley wanted to get out. He was going to be a movie star.
Well, no, it's a little different.
There's more to it, I know.
Yeah, he was supposed to be. Milos Forman had wanted him in a movie, and he needed one show off, and he asked. I forget which episode it was. It was one of the episodes, and he asked if he could just be not in that episode, and they said no, you're under contract, and then they wrote him out of the episode anyway, so he wasn't able to do the movie. And,
which, by the way, screwed his career up quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, Milos Forman, that would have been a huge deal.
What things would be like for him now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a turn in a movie that's probably going to be nominated for an Oscar or something like that. I mean, that would have been
and not being typecast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was huge. And so, he got ticked off. Now, I know later he now says he regrets it and he should have just stuck with the show.
And I know why he says that, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I also don't know that I 100% agree.
Mm-hmm.
But it's his life, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. And I enjoyed the episodes that were in. I was so glad he came back for a couple episodes in season 5. And
I was too, and it was nice to see him.
Yeah,
as an older person.
The episode in season 7, I could take or leave, but
I go back to season 2, and he doesn't look like the older version of Wesley.
Yeah, he doesn't look like that. But anyway, we're rambling now, Ryan.
Yes.
We've been talking for 2.5 hours.
I know. Well, we've done every episode.
Well, I know. We basically, we started doing every episode. We didn't even do that the first time. We kind of just skipped around the first time.
We did skip around a lot the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know why we did it this way this time.
Yeah, I don't know.
You'll just have to cut some of those episodes out.
But anyway, Ryan, this is awesome. I think there's a lot of stuff here. Maybe it is just a personal podcast where we're just two guys who grew up watching the show talking about Star Trek. Hopefully
somebody else finds value.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody else will get some things out of this, or they'll go and watch the show and see if we're right or wrong. I'd love to hear from some people. Like I said, I'm not trashing the show. The show is great.
It's a great show.
The show's amazing. It changed my life. It gave me an imagination. It told me I could write stories. It told me I could dream for the stars, even if I'm just a kid from a poor town outside of St. Louis, Missouri.
That was the thing.
Stars. Yeah.
Grew up watching the reruns. Obviously, I wasn't old enough to watch it live or, when it broadcast.
The original series, you mean?
Yeah. And then they teased in 1986 that they were coming out with this.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy crap, a new Star Trek. And then they showed, little bits and you're like, that's weird. And then you see the first episode and you're like, oh my God, what did they create?
Yeah. Well, I was just so fascinated even by some of the weirdness. And
it was different. I mean, you can't not watch it. It's Star Trek.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah, but they managed to do something, right? They managed to create, they redid the phenomenon, right? This wasn't
survived
this
first couple seasons, which actually I think has some very powerful things in it, which we talked about.
Yeah, they should have survived those because they were great.
There was question.
Yeah, no, I know. I thought they were. I always thought they were going to cancel it every second, right?
Every season or every episode. I wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't really until I realized around season 3 and 4 that it was oh, actually, this is making Paramount just money hand over fist, and they're just not going to cancel the show.
And they're coming out with new Star Trek movies, of course, as original cast, but they still came out with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I guess one other thing I'll say too is something that I think I've talked about in some other podcasts. I think some things people are overlooking is the idea that the format of the show, the idea of a command crew of a spaceship is part of the magic behind the show.
Yes.
And I'm getting, so we go to Deep Space Nine, we don't have that.
Yeah.
It's a space station.
We don't get it until Voyager.
Then they try.
Voyager's a different feel.
Voyager has a totally different feel and
different writers.
They tried to make it work, but I think really they were done by then. Brandon Braga and Jerry Taylor were done.
Well, they've been writing for how long?
Yeah, since season 6 and 7.
Two things came from from Next Gen that we still have today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, beyond the show. Number one, Star Trek fandom grew again. That gave us mainstream acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we got new sci-fi that came out because of the popularity and the power of this show.
Yeah.
It reinvigorated the idea of, hey, sci-fi is a big deal.
Yeah.
So later on, we started getting more sci-fi movies, more sci-fi TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Things grew.
Yeah.
And it was instrumental in all of that.
And I think too, like, like Voyager and Enterprise, the feels of those shows were totally different. And so I can't really put those in the same category, but I think there is something about that format, because when Andromeda came on, we have the command crew of a ship.
Mm-hmm.
The Firefly. I think
you're talking gospel there.
I think having the kind of quirky characters on a starship like that, or a spaceship, I should say, I guess, those we just want to follow some of those people. It just works so well in science fiction TV shows. I think there's something to that. And I'm sad that some of the newer shows have gotten away from some of that. And
we've kind of fallen apart from that nowadays. Well, nowadays everything is about MA. Everything's MA. And I'm not saying anything bad. If you like the risque and the blue and all of that, that's fine. Enjoy it. But too much focus is put on those elements and taking away from the story in many ways, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just kind of strange. I was thinking of
we've lost our innocence.
Yeah. I was thinking of a parallel that I thought was interesting with watching The Mandalorian. Have you watched The Mandalorian?
Yes. I love The Mandalorian. That allowed me to love Star Wars again.
Well, what I was thinking about that is I thought there was a very interesting moment in that first season when you have Mando.
Yeah.
You have the child. You have the ship. You have the Ergonaut technician. Yeah. And you have the assassin droid.
Yeah.
And then you have
where you're going with this. Yes.
And then you have the what is it? Cara Dune and the bounty hunter Carl Weathers, played by the awesome Carl Weathers.
Apollo Creed.
Yeah, you have those characters kind of on the ground, and then you had a little crew with your Ergonaut, the assassin droid, the child, and Mando, and a ship. And I was like, I remember sitting there and I was like, they're going to do a crew. This will be.
I thought that they were
awesome. I was like, this is going to be so awesome. He's going to go off on these adventures with like his little crew, and these guys are great. And then they blew them all up. They blew them all up.
Yeah, why?
They blew up the droid. They killed the Ergonaut guy. I'm forgetting his name. And then
I have spoken. What is his name?
Yeah, I can't remember. Nick Nolte did the voice, which was awesome.
But that's not.
I know, it's not his name. We could find it. But then what did they do?
But
what did they do? Then in the end of season 2, they blew up the ship. And
gave him that stupid Nubian fighter. What's that?
I don't know. But I was just like, oh my gosh.
I love that first season.
You could have had this little crew and gone around the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. For once, an actual crew that would have worked.
And explore everything. It would have been so cool. And they could have checked in with the Cara Dune character and Carl Weathers' character.
Well, but then there's that whole.
Well, I know she left or whatever. I guess she left. But
I don't have any issue with her whatsoever. I thought the character was good. I don't know her as a person. I just know.
I don't try to follow any of that stuff.
All I knew is that kind of crap.
All I knew is that Carl Weathers was there and they had a character, and I thought it was kind of cool. But like, so maybe she's gone, but they check in with Carl Weathers, who runs the Bounty Hunter Guild every once in a while. And you're just like, that would have been an awesome kernel of a show, right?
Yeah. And I liked when they brought in, what's her face? Bo, the Mandalorians. What's her name? I mean, I know the actress, Katie Sackhoff, but.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember the character's name now, but.
Yeah, I know.
That characters, they're brought in things from one of my favorite Star Wars things ever, which is Rebels.
Yeah.
And they brought that in and tied things together. And I thought, oh man, they are filling out the B characters. This is going to be great.
Well, yeah. Well, we're way far afield right now.
Yeah, we're in Star Wars now.
Yeah, but what my point was is I thought we were going to have a crew again, and the crew of a spaceship is something. There's something magical about that in science fiction.
That's why Battlestar Galactica worked. That is why they moved, although it didn't work. But that's why they moved Buck Rogers to a ship.
Yeah.
Because that kind of thing gives you a lot more writing ability, a lot more story. It gives you a lot more elements, and it makes it so much more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you have a good crew of characters, it works so well.
Yeah. No,
and
I
they
agree.
did.
Yeah. And so somehow they managed to capture lightning in a bottle twice, because the original series kicked off a cultural phenomenon. TNG just exploded it. And
it completely brought it back with so much more power
and depth and
because
new
it
characters.
Was, like I said, our generation, a little bit older than us, were brought from, raised on Star Trek. The baby boomers were writing this stuff. They're like, hey, we loved this when we were kids. Let's write this stuff.
Yeah.
And they took it and went with it. And it was like, oh my God, this is exactly what we want. We just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Because nothing like this was going on.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, people, I think, tend to forget about. It's like, I know I mentioned all those other science fiction shows, but I mean, TNG, there was nothing like it. And then it lasted.
Yes.
And so if you're a science fiction fan, you had to be watching TNG, even if you didn't like it in some ways. And then the characters,
even if you didn't like it, you got to watch it. There's nothing else to watch.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. And then then the cast is so good. The effects are so good. Some of the episodes, like we talked about, some of the episodes are just grand slams, slam dunk episodes where I'm mixing sports metaphors into Star Trek.
That's okay. But you can grand slam a basketball,
a slam dunk, a slam dunk of baseball and knock a basketball out of the park or whatever. But
like those T-shirts that say the mixed sports messages. I love those.
Yeah. And so anyway, though, we're all really far afield, but if anybody hasn't watched TNG, hopefully there's nobody on the planet who hasn't yet. So check it out.
Isn't, of age.
That is of age. Yes. And if you're a youngling out there, get Paramount Plus and start watching some episodes.
Yes. Get Paramount Plus.
And you got to start at the beginning. And watch them through, because they are incredible.
But here's my question. See, you and I come from that time period where we were young, but not too young when this came out. Is this like our Star Wars?
Well, I mean, I had Star Wars too. So
well, we did. Obviously, we grew up during both eras.
Yeah.
And without Star Wars, we wouldn't have Star Trek, this next generation either.
Yeah.
But
without the original series, we wouldn't have gotten Star Wars. And without Star Wars, we wouldn't have gotten Next Gen. Yes.
Right. They're very integral. So if you're one of those people that fight against Star Wars or Star Trek, just stop it.
Yeah.
They go together.
Yeah. They represent both halves. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you had a point.
Sorry. So, like for us, when we think Star Wars, we think 4, 5, and 6. I mean, and when I think of the prequels, I think I would rather watch Ewoks than Jar Jar Binks any day of the week, because that's what I'm from. That's my Star Wars. But my daughter and people of those era, the prequels are theirs. Yeah. And now there's these new movies, which I don't know who's going to be part of those, but somebody is.
I have nephews. I have nephews that are in their teens.
That's their Star Wars,
and they love it, and they love the prequels and Mandalorian.
Right. So is this Star Trek our Star Trek? And if there's another Star Trek series, will that be the next that generation Star Trek?
Well, I don't know. I mean, of course, there's so much Star Trek right now on Paramount Plus, but I don't think a lot of
it's... There's so many. There's the cartoon Prodigies and Lower Decks. And
I don't think a lot of it's connecting with wide audiences.
No,
and that's
although I do like the Pike thing. It's interesting.
I haven't watched much or if any of the newer Star Trek yet.
They're not Star Trek in that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, I don't know. Maybe, and it could just be the fragmenting of media, right? Because we can watch so many things.
That's true. Binging everything.
I can, right? Like we can just open up YouTube and get like things for days, right? You could.
God, yeah.
What is it? How many hours of footage? It's something like 100,000 years of footage or something.
We would never have enough time to watch all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't remember the exact number, but
it's huge. I don't remember either.
Yeah. So people who, I know it's is it 48 hours of video every second is uploaded to YouTube? So
I think it's more than that.
Is it more than that now?
Yeah.
That was a couple years old. So yeah, it's probably more than
Although now actually, I bet it's even different because of TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah, the shorts or whatever,
we're losing our attention span.
Yeah, we're losing our attention span. But I think the fragmenting of the media, so you can't get a couple million science fiction fans to watch.
Well, how many TV show or how many channels did you have?
Yeah,
when this came out.
Oh my gosh, we had 5.
Yeah, unless you had cable.
Yeah, we did not
have a couple others.
Yeah, we did not have cable, so we never had cable growing up. Yeah, that was for the rich kids.
We couldn't afford cable.
Oh, I know. So yeah, we had 5. We had the 3 main networks, and we had.
I had a neighbor that had a descrambler, so he had cable.
Yeah, we had 2 independent channels. We had a UHF and then a low band regular one. I forget the other one.
VHF and UHF.
Yeah, UHF. Yeah. So we had a UHF,
and UHF was where your Fox was on.
Yeah, well, that was even still, I remember but
that too. Man.
This was, you had to watch.
You don't remember the Betamax days.
I don't. I do remember Betamax, but I never used one or anything. I don't think we ever rented one because
there wasn't much to rent for it.
Yeah,
it really didn't happen until VHS came out.
I do remember in video stores they had a Betamax and a VHS sections. I do remember that, so I'm old enough to remember that.
The Betamax sections were so tiny.
They were, and then they went away.
They were just like Laserdisc, better than the other, but not.
They're better, but they're not popular. Yeah, it's not the popular medium. But anyway, we're off again.
We're way off.
And I've had you on here for almost 3 hours.
The only thing I wanted to say about Star Trek is this won't happen again.
Yeah,
and there's a reason for it.
Yeah,
because we don't have, like you said, everything is fragmented over many different ways of media.
Yeah.
We will never have where the whole planet watches one show. It just isn't going to happen. You're not going to have another Who Shot JR moment. You're never going to have these things.
Yeah.
And this is one of those shows. This is kind of the last of those shows, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree because, because now there's so many new Star Trek shows. You're like, somebody could be like, oh, well, I like this one out of those, but I can't watch all the other ones.
And they're all a different flavor.
Yeah. And they're all different flavor, and that's fine. But like I said, I haven't got to watch much or really any.
You're not really missing much.
But it is interesting that, how formative, like in all the stuff when I was talking, I know I mentioned this a number of times, but just saying, oh, these episodes aren't good or whatever, how formative this show is to me. Because I talked about it a little bit before. I came aware kind of watching some of the reruns of the original series on, the UHF channel, TV here in our area. And I had always liked that stuff, right? Because it wasn't everything on TV is about crime, lawyers, doctors,
It was like that for a while.
And
that was it.
And it still is almost even that way.
Well,
and
forensic things, because of forensic science, that changed a lot.
Yeah. But my point is that as a kid, right, I was watching the reruns of Battlestar Galactica. I was watching Buck Rogers. I think they were all in reruns by the time I became kind of aware of them, because we had Saturday morning cartoons, and then they would play Buck Rogers, they would play Battlestar Galactica, and then they would play a Star Trek.
Yep.
And then I would go outside and play. And
on Sunday evening, there was a Star Trek.
There was Star Trek on Sunday evenings for a while at a weird time. I think it was like 5 o'clock.
I think it was like 5. Yeah, or 5:30. It was on a half hour, I think.
Okay, and then
at least where I was.
Yeah, I think it might have been a 5 or 5:30 show. It was on Sunday afternoons for a while, but there for a while after the Saturday morning cartoons, it was just those 3 shows, and I just learned to love science fiction watching those 3 shows. And of course, then though, in the early 80s, right, we had Automan, and we had Knight Rider for a little while. We had a few of those shows that only lasted
Knight
for a
Rider.
bit. But
yes, we had all of those. Well, during that period, we had the A-Team, Knight Rider.
Yeah.
There were several little shows like that came out.
Oh,
because it was all about vehicles.
Yeah, vehicles. And then, like I said, too, I'd mentioned Highwaymen, so that kind of picks up.
Highwaymen,
It's like Knight Rider with a huge truck, kind of.
Yep. It was just a huge truck.
But a helicopter came off the front of one.
Oh, Airwolf, too.
Oh, Airwolf. Oh, yeah, and Blue Thunder.
Oh, and Blue Thunder, yes.
Yeah. The ripoff to the ripoff to the other one. Yeah, let's make Airwolf off the feature film Blue Thunder, and then it's like, well, we're going to do a Blue Thunder TV show because Airwolf did a TV show. So we had a lot of vehicles.
Do that.
Yeah.
So we had this whole realism, and then all of a sudden Star Trek came out.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa.
Yeah. I still remember watching that first episode, Encounter at Farpoint. I still remember where I was sitting in my house. My parents and my older brother, he kind of liked some of the stuff, but he was just gone. He was just like, I don't care, about Star Trek.
I still had a cabinet TV.
Oh yeah. I had a TV sitting.
Not like the big cabinet TVs when I was younger, but we had one that was on a swivel and had like space underneath for your your VCR.
Yeah, and VCR and stuff. Yeah. I just remember it was an old big tube TV that we had, and it was just, and I was just watching it, and I wanted to know everything. Like, I wanted to know where Data came from. I wanted to know where Picard came from.
And how did you look it up back then? The encyclopedia.
Yeah, encyclopedias, or we got Starlog magazines.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah,
or Starlog, what the kid said at school.
Yeah,
that knew a guy.
But anyway, I've had you on here for almost 3 hours.
Yeah, my wife's ready to yell at me. Thank you so much for having me on, man.
This was awesome, dude. I love talking about this too. I love Star Trek 2. As well, I should say, because Star Trek 2 is awesome. We're gonna have to do this again, certainly. Why don't you just remind
There's so
people?
Many great things.
We could talk about stuff forever. So why don't you just remind
it? We should do a live show with Colin.
With Colin and tell people why they're wrong.
But it starts
and tell people why they're wrong on opinions about certain episodes.
You're killing me. You made me choke.
It's like Chain of Command is great. All right, here we go. Here's why you're wrong. No,
although I think we pretty much agree on most of it.
We do agree on a lot of it.
Where's the conflict, man? Where's the conflict?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway, Ryan, man, tell the listeners, if there's any still here at this point, where can people find you, and tell them a little about your podcast?
Sure. You can find our podcast, Geezers of the Game, on any of the main players, Apple Podcasts and Google and all that. You can find my personal wonderful book, Not Anywhere, and but it's coming. And and as I was telling you earlier, Matt, I have my new Edith Keeler Must Die t-shirt on TeePublic. I'll send you the link. Nice. So you guys can fund me so I can become, wealthy.
Well, there you go. Yes, buying those t-shirts on TeePublic.
Yeah, it's great for the Christmas season.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I'll be sure to put links in the show notes to your podcast, to the t-shirt, if you send me that link. and all of that, so people can check you out. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on. I will probably break this into like 3 episodes just to let you know.
You said you were going to break the other one into a bunch of episodes. You didn't.
I did. No, I broke it into 2 episodes.
Oh, I guess you did.
I did.
That's right.
Yep, I did. Yeah, one whole episode was the 3rd season because we talked about the 3rd season.
That's right. Yeah. You're right.
So yeah, I will probably break this into 3 episodes.
I listened to them so close together that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll probably break this into 3 episodes. Well, Ryan, anyway, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, there you go, guys. This concludes our massive breakdown of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun talking with Ryan about all things Star Trek and TNG. I got to put in a lot of nostalgia there because this was my childhood show and I loved it so much. Thank you for bearing with me. Maybe sometimes it became a little bit too self-indulgent, but there you go. There is always things we can glean from all of these stories. Each and every single episode, we can gather something out of that and put it into our games and use a situation or scenario to just tell better stories at the gaming table. And so I hope you really enjoyed this. Again, my guest was Ryan McHargue. He is the host of the Geezers of the Game podcast. Links in the show notes at dicegeeks.com. All right. If you want some free stuff, head over to dicegeeks.com/free. Also, if you would like to support the show, you can do so by liking, rating, reviewing, and subscribing to it. Also, you can support the show financially at patreon.com/dicegeeks. All right, guys, I thank you so much for listening, and until next time, keep gaming!